Hello everyone, I'm Joshna Mura. Welcome to HortLegend interviews. Today I'm going to interview Professor Bruce Bugbee from Utah State University. Hello, Bruce. So we are going to learn your experience and your advice to the students. So I have some questions for you, and we would like to know what is your horticulture specialization and what are the primary positions you have held.
Mhm.
Hmm.
First, I got to say it's an amazing thing to call this Hort Legends because you hardly ever think of yourself as a legend. That's what ASH is calling this.
Yeah.
And I suppose after you've been doing something for more than 40 years, uh, you get to be pretty well known. But you asked my specialization, and I've always been interested in mechanisms of things, and to me, mechanisms of things means physiology. Um, and physiology underlies agronomy and horticulture and human medicine. But for me, that gets at the energy and mass transfer principles in plants and the mechanisms by which things happen. Um, and that's carried through my whole career. I teach a class in plant physiology. I teach a class in plant nutrition. Um, I teach a class in environmental instrumentation, but we're always looking at mechanisms by which things happen. And with that, you can then extrapolate beyond the crop you're working with to many other crops, which is pretty important in horticulture because we have many thousands of different kinds of crops that we work with.
Yeah, thank you for your share. Thank you for sharing your experience, Bruce. And what has horticulture meant to your life and career? Can you please share that?
Probably the best way I could say that it's just a relationship with other living organisms that is just deeply gratifying.
Hmm.
And because this has come up before, and because so much of my work over the decades has been funded by NASA, and we've worked with astronauts and NASA growing plants on the space station, we know those people up there are deeply affected by growing the plants. They're up there with no other living organisms except plants in a growth chamber on the wall. And they end up spending a lot of time taking care of the plants because they so much enjoy watching those plants grow. And that gets at a fundamental core human value of the deep satisfaction of caring for other living organisms and helping plants thrive, especially food crops, because now there's the synergism because we're not just growing them because they look nice, we're growing them because they're providing food for us.
That's great. Thank you. And what do you consider to be the most rewarding part of your career in horticulture? Um,
Certainly, it's been people, and
mm,
specifically students, those of us. I'm at Utah State University. It's a long career in teaching, and so you get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students that you've taught over the years, and they're all here now at the meeting. Uh, but it's helping share your passion with them for plants, and that gets reflected back because they get passionate about doing it, and it becomes a profession. Whether they go into academia or some form of industry or work at big botanical gardens, all of it is people that are passionate about plants. So it's clearly been the people and the students that have been great.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And how long have you been a member of ASHS, and how has the society influenced your career?
Yeah, my PhD from Penn State University was in horticulture.
Okay.
And so, gosh, that was 42 years ago. And I joined the Horticulture Society as a graduate student. And so in somewhere north of 40 years is my length of time in the society. It's been longer than I would have ever imagined it might be.
Yeah, that's That's long years. Yeah, thanks for sharing your experience with ASHS. And what advice can you offer to students and young professionals in horticulture?
It, it's easy. We all say this, but follow your passions. And some of that probably starts with identifying your passions.
Mm.
And certainly for me, it's helping people find those passions through study of the mechanisms of plants. I mean, through academics. I right now get a significant amount of funding from big cannabis growers to grow cannabis and study cannabis, pharmaceutical grade medical cannabis. And this has opened up a huge number of doors for people that are passionate about plants, because I see students that never thought about going to college. They just have a high school degree, but they're just passionate to learn how to grow cannabis. It's a universal thing. I mean, thousands of people that didn't know what they were going to do in life. And boy, they found it by studying horticulture and plant physiology so that they could grow very high quality pharmaceutical grade, really botanical medicines. It's not just cannabis, it's the whole range of botanical medicines that can be grown in controlled environments to have very high quality. That I didn't mention this, but that's high input agriculture as exemplified by controlled environments has been my whole career. And now that's a red hot topic. People are looking for faculty in that area. It wasn't quite so much of a thing in the 1980s. We were using controlled environments to study plant responses to the environment, but now we're using controlled environments to make food production. And especially food and pharmaceuticals. Anyway, cannabis has been become a big part of this. I love the quote by John Dewey: "We learn what we do, and if you do something, your hands feed the brain, and you get interested in the underlying mechanisms of this." So let your hands feed your brain, if it is a nice advice to young students. Do things and then study why things happen.
Thanks for your advice. That's a great advice. And we would like to know, like, what excites you most about the future of the horticulture industry and profession?
Oh, there's many things. I guess this could be interpreted as, where do I see the profession going? We talk a lot about controlled environment agriculture. We've used that term for years and years. And it's a fine term, but I like to think of it as high input agriculture. It's not just plants under if you grow them without sunlight, I call that electric light agriculture, because that's no sunlight at all, which is very energy intensive. It's hard to make that sustainable. But greenhouses use natural sunlight. They're high input agriculture. How about high tunnels? How about raised beds in the field where you're not working at ground level? All of that is high input agriculture. And I see that as a huge future to make agriculture even more high input and high output, both. Agronomy Society, I'm also a fellow in the Agronomy Society, and I go to those meetings every year. That's not high input agriculture, that's low input. And they're looking at how to make the inputs as low as possible to get maximum yield. If you're growing wheat and rice and corn and soybeans, those things are, you can grow them and store them for a long time, but that's an example of a much lower input. And they're looking at making the inputs even lower to make production more efficient. And in horticulture, we're looking at making the inputs higher to make the quality higher. So it's a big distinction between where horticulture is going and
Yeah.
where agronomy is.
That's great. Thanks for sharing your insights. Um, thank you for thank you, Bruce, for participating in the ASHS Heart Legend interviews, and thank you for your time and your insights and your suggestions to younger generations.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope these interviewing all the most senior people in the society is catches on, and the young people can learn something from these HortLegend's interviews. So, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.